Hello, hi, and welcome in this super humid, hot climate. I am melting away, so that's why no shirt, just like, some armless top. Armless? Is that the right description? I don't know. I recently saw a post on Reddit about Samantha March. It was actually, I don't consume her content anymore. She's way too out of my personal interest zone, but people were just commenting on her, and someone was saying, because she was wearing in the thumbnail a piece of clothing like that, but I think with these thinner straps here, and they were saying, like, can she afford to wear a t-shirt? Like, honestly, she lives in Vegas, and I just assume that all year round Vegas is just the burning hell. So, she can wear whatever she wants. If she wants to sit there in the bra only, honestly, I don't care. You do you, girl. So, I hope you don't mind what I'm wearing. And not that there is at one point a Reddit thread about me where people are just blah 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 blahing about that I'm not wearing a t-shirt, that I'm just wearing a top. Actually, this is my yoga workout top because I'm about to hit a yoga workout. But why am I rambling so much? This is part two of my palette roulette. I am so excited about this right now, and if you haven't watched part one, make sure to check this out. I have created a playlist actually for that I will also put down below. And palette roulette, I think it is quite self-explaining. I do have a Wheel of Fortune app, like it's Tiny Decisions that I use on my phone. I put all my palettes in there, and with each of these videos, you get 3 looks with 3 different palettes, and the palettes are actually chosen right in the moment where I'm doing the look. So I spin the wheel, you see the screen recording of that, and then we choose the palette. And this look, for example, is the last look of the video. It's done with the ColourPop Aurora stroke, where I even have a full video about this just from this year, because I love this palette so much. And I have 2 more fun looks to come. I don't want to spoiler you, although actually you see it in the title. So what am I actually saying here? So the palettes that are featured in today's video are the Pat McGrath Midnight Sun, aka Mothership VI, my favorite mothership of them all, and the Girlcult Miao Witch Sudden Thunderstorm palette from the Miao Witch collection that came out earlier this year? Yeah, I think it was this year. Sometimes I'm not processing in my head that actually we already have mid-year. We passed now the point where half of the year is gone, because when you see the video, it is already mid-July. So let me tell you a story very quick before we head into the videos. My parents visited me actually in my timeline yesterday. For you, it's 2 weeks ago. And we just had a talk, because where I live currently in Germany is not where I was born. I moved 500 kilometers away from that place. And my mother was saying, like, yeah, and not too long ago you moved. I was like, Mom, I moved 11 years ago. And she was like, no. And I was like, I did. I moved in 2014 here, and wow, that hit me hard. And then we just had some more thought processes on it, and I said, in just 4 years, actually, so 2029 will mark the year where my the German Abitur, it's like the highest school diploma that you can get before you decide to go to university or so, will then be 20 years. So in 2009 I finished school. 2009. I was 17, 18 at that time. I can't process this, but that's not what it's all about. I just wanted to bring in that fun story. So 3 beautiful palettes in this video: Midnight Sun, Miao Witch, Sudden Thunderstorm, and ColourPop Aurora Stroke. Let's head right into the videos, and I hope you really enjoy them. Alright, and our wheel for the first look is giving us the Pat McGrath Mothership VI Midnight Sun. Oh, that is still my favorite mothership. And I think this is also the one that looks the most destroyed in my collection. I mean, just Alone, this shade is just so freaking worth it. And usually I use this for inner corner highlight, but actually I think I want to make this the center of attention today, but I also want to bring in a little bit of the blue. So let's see what I can do with this. But I'm pretty sure that it's going to be a cool look. Starting soft with the shade Taboo, I apply this slightly above the crease for my transition area. I then tap into Extreme Dusk and apply this on my outer crease part and bringing it already down to the lashes. And then I just keep on blending to have a super diffused, smoked out outer crease, outer V part. I then take another blending brush and I go into Bronze Eclipse, and that one I start to blend on that inner crease bit. And I take this to the center, and with a little bit more of the Taboo shade, I just go over that and blend it out a little bit. I now pick up the best shade of all Pat McGrath Mothership palettes that was ever made, and that is Astral Solstice. Yeah, Solstice is the name. I always have to look up how exactly that name is, Solace or Solstice. And I start to apply this super stunning shade here in the inner part of my lid. Tap it towards the inner corner. And then I keep on building with that shade and bring it to the most outer part, but not all the way. So the outer third I'm leaving bare. Urban Decay Moon Dust wishes to look like this. But I now pick up Blitz Violet Orchid, also a very, very beautiful shade of blue on a black base, I think. And that one I apply here on that set outer third, and then I tap this out to blend into Astral Solstice. I actually tap back into Extreme Dusk, that darker shade, and I rebuild the outer part, but I'm also taking it inwards. I feel like there is some more cool toned contrast missing. Let's add some bright liner. I'm using ColourPop Peach Fuzz just for a lightened waterline. It was actually the first liner that I just grabbed here, so I think a more brightening concealer looking like one would have been a bit better, but it's fine as it is. So I now pick up Extreme Dusk again, and I smudge that here on my lower lash line, all the way to the inner corner. I wipe the brush off here on a clean towel, and I now go into Vermilion Venom, and I smudge that slightly below Extreme Dusk for a nice reddish blown out look. I think Skin Show Moon Glow would be an amazing inner corner highlight, but I I think that Jubilee color could be a little bit too intense, but I also want to actually use Blood Moon since I have the red on. You know what, let's try Blood Moon. 005 is the name, and just break it up a little bit here. And now let's do this as a darker inner corner today, and I'm also smudging it on the lower lash line. And here you have the first finished look with Mothership VI here in this palette Roulette. On the lips I'm wearing the MAC lip liner in the shade Oak, together with the Lawless Forget the Filler Balm in the shade Cherry Vanilla. There is just a reason why Mothership VI is my favorite, and the reason is just alone the shade Astral Solstice. I do think that some of these shades are a little bit misplaced here, so in Color Story I would never ever give this a 10 out of 10. This, I think, in my ranking has an 8 out of 10. What I would do differently is that Taboo shade has to go and should be replaced with something more cool toned, same as this one here. This is the shade Bronze Eclipse. It is just way too warm for the palette, because for the warmth we have the gold here, we have that green one, that's Wicked Envy, we have the Vermilion Venom here, and we have the Blood Moon 005 shade. They are all pretty, yes, but I would just exchange some of the shades. I do like the look that I created. It's definitely a little bit different than what I usually would do with the Mothership 6, so I am happy that I challenged myself. So now let's spin the wheel for the next palette. All right, and now the spin here will give us Girlcult Miao with the Sudden Thunderstorm palette. Usually from Girlcult in those different collections, and now some of the palettes just they had a bit of a lean now in the shelf. Usually you get quads, but in the Miao Witch collection, we, for I think the first time, got some 8-pan palettes, and there were 2 in that collection. I thought of the Thunderstorm when I saw this, that I want to have this. So I have a review on this, so you can check that out. I try to remember to link the video down below, but I'm also now very excited to do a look with this because honestly, while I am on one hand craving, because of the heat, some more lighter looks and more, let's even say more effortless looks where I just, you know, just 1 or 2 shadows and be good to go, I'm also craving some more grungy looks. So, let's see what I can do with this. So I start with the gray in the first row. The gray. And I use this immediately in the crease and then blend it upwards in the transition area. I think you can tell that the shade goes on a bit patchy, but don't worry, it'll all work out. I now tap into the white. And I apply this in the transition area to create a, transition from the gray to the skin. On a smaller brush now, I grab the black. This is a black with shimmers throughout. There are some pink and blue and even some silver specks of glitter throughout. So it's a very soft sequin shade. And that one, I carefully tap on the outer part of my lid and then I very roughly blend it into the crease. And I then come back with a little bit more of that gray and I soften the black edges. I now pick up the dark shimmery blue. This is a very, very pretty shade. It is a midnight blue but on a black base, so it is absolutely stunning. And I apply this here on the outer part, tapping it out and then bringing it up to the center. Oh, I love this shade so much. And then I take the light blue here. This has even some reflex of pink throughout, or very slight purple, I would say. And that one I start to apply on the inner lid part. And I'm also bringing it to the center. And then I mix them both together so that I have a smooth gradient going on. For liner, I go in with Nabla's Midnight Gray. And I do line my waterline first. But I'm also lining the upper waterline a bit. And I then take the brush that I had the black on, tap back into the black, but just with the tip, and start to smudge that on the outer half of the lower lash line. With a pencil brush, I go into the gray, on smudging from the center on, bringing it inwards, and smudge a little bit also on top of the black for a little bit more smoothness. I wipe the brush here on a dry towel and now I go into the light blue and I start to blend this on the inner part of the lower lash line. And I'm slightly building it up and blending it on top of the black. The effect is very, very subtle. It is more so just to tone down, but not to tone down with a pure white. And now for inner corner highlight, I could go with one of the mattes, but actually I go with the darker multi-chrome here. And I remember from the review that this was a very, very interesting shade. So I try to pack it on here. Very precise actually, blending it just a little bit onto the lid. Yeah, it's such a pretty shade. It has a greenish base, I would say, and then has a lot of golden and pink shifts to it. And because of its darkness, it just gives this look a very interesting turn. My inner corners look extremely hollowed, I think, and I actually dig this a bit. I like the way this looks. Here you have the final look with the Girlcult Miao Witch Sudden Thunderstorm palette. For lips, I went with the Izamaya Black Veil Lip Lac. The palette is just overall stunning, and once again, I actually regret a little bit that I didn't make this shade here center of attention, because it looks just so beautiful in the inner corner, and in my head I envision this eye look where I pair it just with the black, so the black as matte blending shade, but first the shimmer all over the lid, very sloppy applied, and then blend it out with a nice brush with the black, and then just make it all very smudgy, grungy and messy. It's a vision that I have in my head, and at some point I really have to bring this to life, but overall it is just so beautiful. And if you wonder, if you can even tell what I'm wearing as brow and highlight, before I finish the look, I decided that I want to add a little more glitter, because I'm just in my glitter phase again, and I want to put on glitter everywhere I go. So I decided to go with the shade Persephone, I think is the right pronunciation, from the Slayfire Cosmetics Diamond Skin Glitter palette. I don't think I mentioned this in the beginning when I chose the palette with the wheel, but just for transparency reasons, this palette was sent to me in PR by Look Healthy store. As said, I do have a review, I'm affiliated with them, so if you want to pick them up, all the infos are always down below. And now, moving on to the last palette. And we're already down for the last spin actually, so we will be getting for the last look ColourPop Aurora Struck. I'm not mad about this choice. This is such a stunning eyeshadow palette. It is so truly beautiful. And if you want to see more than just this look in the video, I do have a full video from I think February or so, where I created 3 or 4 looks with these, and all of them were bangers. I don't know exactly what I want to do, so I will quickly check what shades I already used this year in the palette, and then I'll decide what look I'm going to build. I actually used nearly all of the shades, so what I haven't touched is Atmosphere, Stargazing, In Orbit, Total Eclipse, and Arctic Fox actually. So what I am going to do is I want to create a minty look. So I will make for the shimmers Total Eclipse and In Orbit for the lid, so something dark on the outside, Arctic Fox as highlighty shade, and then I would just try to build the look around that. So I start off with one of my favorite shades in this palette, and I know it's super boring, but the shade Night Sky. It's a desaturated pastel mint shade, but with gray undertones, I think, and I just love the shade. It's a sequin, so there are some shimmers going on, but that is not really that like shimmery, so it's not like you put on a metallic on the crease, but I'm starting with this shade directly in the crease, and then I'm blending it upwards. I then go into Great Earth. It's also a sequin, but this is more blue leaning than minty green. And this one I run throughout the crease. These sequin shades here really mimic the effect of snow in the nighttime. I don't know if that makes any sense, but you see, I am very in love with the Aurora Struck palette. Now let's add a little bit of darkness actually with Stormy Much, and I'm applying this on the outer V. Now I go into Total Eclipse. I would say that this is not really a shimmer shade. This is a more glitter heavy sequin shade. So the base actually of this shade is very matte. So what I do is I carefully just tap this here on the most outer lid part. Yeah, definitely. This has a matte, not black, but super duper dark blue base with a lot of glitter specks throughout. Stunning shade, but it's not a shimmer or a pure metallic as you would define it, to be honest. But it is so pretty. I now go into In Orbit, and yes, I know this looks very unblended. That is the correct case here. And I tap this here in the center of the lid, bringing it inwards, but not all the way in. Now I am tapping it out on top of the dark, forgot the name, sorry, the Total Eclipse shade. Just like that, so it does fade into it. And then I take the brush that I had Stormy Mudge on, and I start to blend from the outer edge of Total Eclipse, and then I bring it through the crease. I now pick up Arctic Fox and apply this on that little bit that is still bare on the lid and blend it into the center shade that I again forgot, In Orbit, I'm sorry. For the lower lash line, I'm starting with ColourPop, what's the shade? Icebreaker Liner. It is a super nice bright minty one and it matches perfect that Arctic Fox shade. And I first start with Stormy Mudge. Not sure if I want to blend with Total Eclipse shade 2, but we will see. So I take that shade and I just at first start to blend this along the lower lash line. Maybe a little bit. A teeny tiny bit. With the same brush, I tap very short into Total Eclipse. And I am carefully blending this on the most outer part. Yeah, like this. That is better. Just mimicking a little bit of that darkness. And then I take a pencil brush and go into Night Sky. And I start to blend this on the inner part of the lower lash line and then a little bit underneath the other shades just to smudge it, smoke it out a bit. For the inner corner highlight, I could do something super obvious and just take the Arctic Fox shade and bring it back in, but actually I want to do something a bit different. I want to keep up that snow dark night sky inspired look. So I will take, I take So Lit, and that one I now tap very concentrated on the inner corner. And then the little bit that is left, I'm just smudging on the lower lash line part. And here we have now the finished look with the ColourPop Aurora stroke on the lips. Oh boy, I love this combo. This is the Isamaya Beauty lip liner in the shade Liberica, and I topped it off with the new Makeup Forever Super Gloss or Super Boost Gloss in the shade Festival Lilac. I am in love. I wanna drench myself into this combo. But this is about the eyeshadow palette, and I just cannot stress enough how much I love the Aurora Struck palette. If there weren't the Twilight palettes, this would be my favorite. Actually, I like this more than the New Moon palette, but that is plainly for the color story. I'm not so much into warm fire colors, although I like the execution of the New Moon movie in that color palette, but color story wise, the OG Twilight palette from ColourPop I like better than this, yes, but non-limited edition wise, Aurora Struck, I love this little girl here. This is such a good palette, and if you love these shades, ices, mints mixed in with darks, then this is your way to go. And it is just such a good price and what you get relation, because just look at this. This palette makes that one thing right that I always criticize with ColourPop, and that is the depth and the hues. Usually ColourPop palettes, they do have, when you look at it, they have a very, very pretty color story, but when you start to use it, in my opinion, they're lacking depth. There are just shades missing in there to create looks that have variation, to create just looks that look alive, that look structured, that look just visually pleasing to me and my own vision, because I don't like looks that are all in the same level of light. But the Aurora Struck palette just makes it possible. You have these beautiful darker shades here in the last two rows. You have a mid-toned row here, and then you have two light rows. I think this is very, very well balanced when it comes to the depth level. The different hues and colors and the way it is just executed is beautiful, and I should now stop raving about this. So I think that was once again a very, very successful palette roulette, and to be honest, this is becoming, apart from my You Don't Need That Shits Every Monday, this is becoming a very, very favorite series of mine. I don't know how the first video of this performed, but I just assume it performed not as good as videos that I do with new makeup, but honestly, I don't care at this point because I have so much fun, and I also know that a lot of you are actually seeking out for content where it is about using what you already have and not just consuming all the new. Personally, I myself, I like to keep it at the balance, so these are perfect for me. And to be honest, I am a little bit tired currently of my other series with Gluminatrix, Terra Moon, and the Cleona ones. While I do love the looks that I create with this, I am just right now more in a state of mind where I want to rotate through the complete palettes and not only pick out companion palettes. So these series are not gone or so, they're just on pause because I'm focusing more on whole palettes right now. So let me please know your thoughts down below. Which one was your favorite? Do you have any of these palettes? Again, if I do have an affiliate code down below and you just saw this here and you wanna grab this and just be happy with this palette and you don't want to bother looking out in your own collection what you have, check out the info box below. If you have these palettes already like Aurora Struck and you are just looking for more inspiration, I'll also link the video down below where I use this, where I have a full video on this, and then you can just seek some more inspo, and just in general, all the links, all the infos are always down below. Thank you so much for joining today, and make sure to subscribe so you don't miss any of the other upcoming videos, and I'll see you very, very soon.